talk about, like, for most people who don't know, like, there is a connection between brainstem function and brain function. And so the brainstem, one of its main jobs is to alert the brain to consciousness. And the other major job that a function that it has is to modulate emotion. And so, that's why, for example, one of the leading causes of depression is alcoholism. The reason for that is because the alcohol depresses the vagus nerve, it depresses the brainstem, it depresses the frontal lobe, it affects the prefrontal cortex, that inherently affects mood. Right. Prefrontal cortex is where mood is controlled. It's where mood, personality, who you are, that's all directed through the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex gets the majority of its information from the brainstem. Well, that's good for us because the atlas surrounds the brainstem.
Where does that brainstem sit in relation? Right next
to the atlas. So if they have a history of head trauma, which also most mental health patients do, take CTE, for example. It's just prevalent in the NFL right now, and really every sport, but it's becoming more prevalently talked about. Multiple head traumas leads to plaquing on the brain. I actually think it does have an effect on the brain, but I actually think it has a bigger issue through the brainstem modulation process of mood, personality, all these types of things, which is what we check people for. But B.J. Palmer was checking people for it in the 1930s.
Yeah.
And I don't think people know that. And so it's just an awareness piece. If you're one of those who looks like, likes historical, mental health, nerd, junkie type stuff, of course we do, because it's our game. It's what we do. But it just is something that we're looking a little bit more into, trying to figure out how can we help more people with this, especially at younger ages, to help. Because listen, this is a trickle effect, and small things are large. If we can make one adjustment to one person, they go out in the community and affect other people, that makes a large ripple. And if it can reduce even just minimalistically mental health in our society, I think it's something we should be looking at. And I think, it's definitely something that we are. So, just something that's interesting, maybe viewers would find interesting.
And we see it a lot too with children, and particularly children with ADHD. The reason why is not just the prefrontal cortex, but the way that brainstem, where it sits, in the middle of the C1, C2, the atlas and the axis. We also know that on the brainstem, the area is responsible for process information, sensory processing, which is also how we see a lot of OCD, a lot of other sensory processing disorders. And sometimes we're treating with all these different medications and all these different types of things to be able to help correct what the effect is, but not the cause. When there is friction, and there's the cicatrix and all these different types of theories of misalignments that we talk about, but when we have a problem inside of that brainstem, inside of the central nervous system, what's happening is the body is unable to process information effectively. And when that happens, we can start seeing sensory processing disorders because the main things responsible for coordinating those processes are being impacted. So yeah, that's another great point.
On top of the fact, a 7-year-old doesn't want to sit still in class. It's not built for that, he or she.
Oh, that's, yeah.
We're not wired. The brain doesn't. We know that the frontal lobe doesn't fully functionally develop until the age of 18.
Yep.
So a 7-year-old is not designed to sit still in a chair. So combat that with the fact that potentially they came out with birth trauma and they have sensory overload disorder within the prefrontal cortex, which means the brain is seeking sensory information